Welcome back to my channel, everyone. Sweet Tips here. And this is the jeweler's workbench. And down here is his drawer full of tools. Below that, we have some carpet, some flooring. And the jeweler has given me a piece of the carpet. And what we're going to do is we're going to refine the precious metals out of this piece of carpet. What we're going to do is begin this process by putting our piece of carpet in a melt dish here, and we're going to incinerate this to a fine ash powder. All right, we've got the temperature up around 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's been in here for probably half an hour or an hour, and this is what it looks like. It's completely burnt now. Oh yeah, it's a nice powder consistency. That's just perfect. Now we're going to put our material in this fine mesh wire screen and break it up into a finely divided state. I'm dropping in a stir bar. We'll set this up on the stir plate. Now I'm going to add some distilled water and turn on the stir bar. I'm going to turn on some heat and we'll start adding small doses of nitric acid to remove any silver or palladium that may be present in this material. I've added probably 25 or 30 milliliters of nitric acid now, and I'm not getting a whole bunch of reaction here, so we'll just let this heat up and come to a boil and go from there. Our material has been on stirring and on the heat now for about an hour. I'm going to add a little bit of nitric acid. Let's see what kind of reaction we get here. If I don't see a whole bunch of fumes here, that's a tip-off that everything that's going to go into solution has probably already dissolved. I'm going to turn off the stirring, turn the heat off. Let's get our stir bar out of here. And now we're going to set this over here. I'm going to add some distilled water to cool this off and dilute the solution. I've let the solution cool completely. So now what we're going to do is we're going to draw a little bit of our solution out of here and get a little bit of it in a test tube here. I'm going to add a little hydrochloric acid to the solution. We're going to test for the presence of silver here. If there's silver in here, we'll get a little bit of silver chloride forming. And I don't see any of that. No silver in our solution. That's a surprise to me. I'd expect a little bit of silver in there, but according to this test, nothing. Now we're going to reach down in here with a little piece of filter paper. And we'll do a stannous test on this now and see if we've got any precious metals in solution from that nitric boil. Here we go. And I am seeing just a faint little bit of stain forming there. I'm going to try sticking the filter paper right straight down into our solution out of the beaker. Put a little stannous on this, see what we get. There we get a little bit of a darker stain. I'm going to do a little test here with some ferrous sulfate. Pour a little bit of it into the spot plate here. And now we're going to draw some of the liquid up out of our beaker. If this has got gold in it, we'll see a brown cloud form in our solution. That's weird. I got a cloud forming, but I'm not quite sure what that is. Alright, this time I'm going to do it a little differently. Some of the ferrous sulfate crystals in the spot plate. I'm going to draw up a little bit of the liquid out of the beaker. I'm going to put that in this cavity. And now I'm going to reach in here and grab one of these green crystals and drop it into our solution here and see what happens. If we've got gold in there, we'll see a brown cloud forming. I'm getting something reacting with the ferrous sulfate. Might be gold. Based on this test, it looks like we might have a little bit of gold in solution. So now what we'll do is I'm going to filter the solution out of the beaker now, and we'll go from here. Here I've got a specially fitted filter that rides up the inside of the funnel, so we capture 100% of the solids in the filter paper, and none of it ends up on the inside of the funnel. Alright, here's a look at the solid material down in the bottom of the beaker. Kind of curious as to what that's going to yield here for us. I've got everything into the filter. Filter's super loaded up, and I'm getting just drops of liquid coming down. So this is going to take a while to filter out, and once we get it all pulled through, we'll go from there. I've got all the liquid pulled off of these solids. This is what it looks like. Normally we do this to make sure and pull any silver away from those solids, but I don't think we have any silver in this group. So what I'm going to do is transfer this now into a beaker. I'm going to get another stannous test and see what it is that we have in here. And as you can see, I'm getting a stain. So we've got a little bit of precious metals in there. I don't know if it's going to be worth trying to chase after or not. This is the small amount of liquid from the test that we did to see if we had silver chloride. It's got a little hydrochloric acid. I'm going to add that right on in. Now what we'll do is add a little bit of hydrochloric acid. See how this reacts. Alright, that'll form a little bit of Aqua regia in here. Now we're going to add a couple of spoons of stump out. Stump out is sodium metabisulfite. And I'll see a whole lot of reaction going on. What we'll do is just cover this up now and set this back out of the way. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to add these solids right back into the same beaker that they came out of. See how clean that funnel is? Let's add some hydrochloric acid to these solids. A little bit more. Now we'll cover this beaker up with our solids in it, release the stir bar back down in there, and start stirring and add a little bit of heat. Before we go any further, I'm going to get a stannous test on this liquid just to get a baseline, see what we got before we get started here. And as you can see, it's just a tiny amount of stain. Now we're going to add a little bit of nitric acid to form Aqua regia in this beaker and see if we can dissolve any gold out of those solids. Fume production has lightened up noticeably in here. I'm going to add a squirt of nitric. See if we can get a reaction. It's been on boiling now for about an hour. I'm going to pull this up, and you can see there's just a little tint of brown on the bottom here. Not much. Just a light dusting. This guy's been on boiling now for just a little over an hour. I'm going to pull him down off the heat. And what we'll do is get a stannous test on this right quick. Just see exactly what it is that we have in this solution. Oh yeah, we've got a nice extraction of gold from our solids. What I'll do now is just let this settle out and cool off, and we'll go from here. I've got a vacuum bottle set up down here, and what we're going to do now is we're still in the recovery phase of this, and we're trying to separate and concentrate the valuable material from the junk that's in this material. And so, in order not to disturb the sediment on the bottom of this beaker, as you can see, let me see if I can zoom in here. It's got some sediment down there. If I tried to pour that valuable liquid off the top of that sediment, it would get disturbed and then get pulled over with the cleared liquid that's been allowed to settle. So if you look down here, you'll see that I'm pulling the gold off of the solids in that beaker down into my vacuum bottle. Here's our solution that we vacuumed off. Now what we'll do is set these things back out of the way. Here's our gold that we precipitated yesterday, and if you look underneath here, there's very little, if anything, just a light dusting on the bottom of the beaker. Set that back out of the way, and now what we'll do is we'll get set up and pull our gold solution through a filter now. Alright, let's filter our solution. Jeweler's scrap always does this. Notice I still got some sediment in here, and the solution's pulling through the filter real slow. Even though I drew the clarified solution off, I still managed to get some of it in there. Now that I've got most of the liquid pulled through this filter, we'll go ahead and get the rest of this into the filter and try to pull our gold solution through. Here we go. I've got most of the material pulled through into a flask. What I want to do now is pull up this flask and our flask that has our gold in it back here. It's not very much, like I said, just a light dusting on the bottom of the beaker. So what we're going to do is transfer this waste solution into this beaker. Went fairly well. That's what the gold looks like that came out of the nitric solution that we added hydrochloric acid to. This is just a waste solution. It may have a little bit of precious metals in it. I'm going to set this off in the back. Now what we'll do is put this little bit of gold that we've got in this beaker up on our heater. Add a little bit of hydrochloric acid to it, not much. I'm going to add a shot of nitric acid. Try to dissolve this gold. Shouldn't take much. It didn't take long to dissolve, maybe about 5 minutes. I'm going to take it off the heat, set it down here, let it cool off. I'm adding a couple of pieces of frost from the freezer. Cool it down. Okay, let's Bring our filter flask back up. The filter is highly loaded, and when the filter gets loaded up like that, it can filter out very fine particulate. So we're just going to try to pour this now through this filter and gather all our values in one spot. Here we go. While I'm waiting for that to filter, we get a little bit of this solution back here and see what we got. Do a stannous test. Nothing. I probably won't even save this solution. I'll add it directly into my waste treatment bucket. That took about 2 hours to pull that through. So now I have about maybe 6 hours invested in filtering. I'm just going to do a little bit of a rinse here, and we'll pull that rinse water down into our main solution, and then we'll go from here. I've got that little bit of rinse water pulled through there now. Here's a look at the solids. That green color comes from the jeweler's rouge that he uses, a green colored polish that he uses to polish pieces of jewelry. We've now completed the recovery phase of this. We're transitioning to the refining phase now. I had a little bit of sulfuric acid to precipitate out any lead that might be present. The jeweler is getting ready to send in his carpet in his shop to a big refiner. That's why I'm doing this for him. He wanted me to take a sample of the carpet, which he gave me about 1 square foot, and see what kind of a yield we can expect from just 1 square foot of the carpet. I've got some slow flow filters here, and these are real fine. They'll get out any real fine particulate out of our solution. So we're going to go ahead and filter this concentrated gold solution now through a very fine filter. See if we can get it to clear up. If you look at the bottom of the flask, you'll see there's some very fine particulate down in the bottom of this flask that I'm pouring off right now. I'm not gonna add that in. I'm just gonna let that remain in the bottom of that flask. I don't want it in my main solution down here. Here you can see that white fine particulate down at the bottom of this flask. I'll add that little bit of liquid to my stock pot, but I don't want that. I don't know what that is. I don't want it in my stock pot or in this batch here. The solution is looking fairly decent now. Let's do a quick stannous test here before we precipitate out our gold. And there you can see we have gold in solution. It's not much. I'm only expecting a few grams from this precipitation. All right, this is the part I love. Never get tired of watching this. I'm going to precipitate our pure gold with some sodium metabisulfite. Here we go. I've got a layer of gold forming down on the bottom of the beaker. Doesn't look like much. Reach in here and get a little bit on a filter paper. Do a stannous test. Now that's producing a stain that looks orange. So it's probably a little bit of platinum group metals in solution. That's our stannous test after about 1 minute. So now I think what we're going to do, we've got all the gold precipitated out of here. What I think I'm going to do is just boil this solution now. See if we can get the gold to settle out. Do I even need to do that? Yeah, let's go ahead and give it a boil. Been on the heat boiling now for about 10 minutes. I want to reach down in here and get a stannous test on this liquid one more time. If you notice, I keep testing with stannous to make sure that we're not putting gold back into solution. And I'm seeing a faint orange stain there. A little hint of green. It's probably going to be platinum group metals. There's no telling what's in our jeweler's scrap. Jeweler's scrap is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Now we're going to pour off this liquid off of here into a waste container and see what kind of gold yield we got waiting for us down in the bottom of this beaker. Alright, here is our pure gold powder down in the bottom of our beaker. Here's our pure gold down the bottom of the filter. Looks like a couple of grams. Cover it with some borax. And then we'll start to melt it. This little button came out looking way better than I thought it would. It's about the amount that I expected to recover. It's got a little pipe in it there. And so now what we're going to do, to get that flux off, I'm going to put it in a little distilled water here. And then add a little bit of sulfuric acid. And what it'll do is it'll dissolve that flux off of there for us. Let me put it up here on the heat. If you notice, a few more particles of gold have come out of that solution. That's nothing, a tenth, less than a tenth. So now we'll put this up on some heat and dissolve that flux off of that gold button. It's been sitting in that dilute hot sulfuric for about 5 minutes. Let's go in and see what we got here. Here's our pure gold bead slash button. Looks fairly high purity to me, judging by the surface of it and the presence of that pipe. A pipe is a little indentation in the center of the button on the upper side of it that occurs when the gold freezes. This is a indication that we've got some high purity gold here. Probably 995 purity, with the main contaminant being some platinum group metals. Let's see what kind of we got 1.8 grams out of 1 square foot of the jeweler's carpeting. Now this wasn't directly under his bench. It was a little bit behind and to the left of his bench. So this will give the jeweler a little rough idea of what he can expect from some of that carpet around his shop. This will conclude the video. We'll offer this for sale on my eBay store. 1.8 grams of high purity gold. All right, that'll conclude the video. Thank you for watching.